They adopted Holden later. The name's getting clumsy because we added more people, and we've got 4 towns now. I think they're going to roll the dice and probably rename the Tea Party. But Leicester, Paxton, Rutland, and Holden Tea Party is where I started out, and that was in January or February of this year. So Knox Trail started in May, I think, April or May. So that started a few months later. But I was not at the very first meeting of Leicester Paxton, but I understand there were about a dozen, maybe 15 people at their first meeting. Knox Trail, at our first meeting, and this was started but just by 2 or 3 core people out in Spencer and the Brookfields, we had 120 people show up at our first meeting. Yeah, it was a huge turnout, and we pretty much held that number at most of these meetings. It did go down below 100. I think Linda said 75, 80, and it was up towards 100 though for the better part. So I feel that we were really blessed with a lot of people turning out and showing up. That's the positive thing with Knox Trail. Big numbers, and it was sustainable right up to election. We were meeting bi-weekly every 2 weeks. And after the election, we decided to pretty much drop that off to once a month, unless there's a special, meeting or gathering. So just because the election had passed, people needed to decompress and kind of get back to fall chores and all that type of stuff. But it was a really, that was the best part of Knox Trails, just seeing the number of people out in the Spencer and Brookfields who wanted to get involved. The frustrating thing is what I share with all of my panelists here. Just not enough people to do the work. And standouts, one of the guys in the group was a real aggressive standout guy, John McRae. He wanted to do standouts and set up schedules, so like we were covered at all the intersections, every critical hour, just get these names out there and get our message out there, whether they were signs or support for candidates. And they were just, I don't even consider myself a good member in terms of the frequency that I stood out. I stood out plenty during this thing, but I didn't do it like around the clock religiously like some of the diehards in the group did. You might be in that category. but there were, just to make a long story short, there aren't enough people who came forward, and I don't know whether it's a personal thing, whether they didn't want to be seen in public holding signs for the Tea Party or for candidates. I really don't know. It probably varies from person to person. Maybe they just didn't have the time, or maybe they didn't want to be seen by their neighbors. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. But we're hopeful that more of them will come out of the woodwork, later as the country gets in worse shape in all likelihood, until things are addressed in Washington, and people will just get off the couch and get involved, because it's going to take a lot of people to change what's going on in this country. We feel we've made a good start, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
And that would answer the frustration that everybody seems to be having with numbers. Numbers are good, but they're not the most important thing. It's not that important that we have large organizations. So I called up my quote from the original Tea Partier, Sam Adams. It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority to set brush fires in people's minds. All we have to do is change minds, and we'll win. We don't need to have a lot of people saying they're Tea Partiers. We don't need a lot of people coming to our meetings, but we should project the image that we are large, and if we're able to change minds, then we'll win. And so we may not be able to get people to stand out in the cold or to come to a meeting, but there are other ways to communicate and to succeed.
A question for all of you. As a general rule, in any organization, I found that there's always a core group that does a lot of the heavy lifting, while there's a lot of people who'll be on the periphery. They'll do small things, or they'll help out, but they're not the everyday people. So, considering that reality, is it all that odd that you had small cores? I mean, you all seem to be disappointed about that, but I would say that would be normal rather than
I would
abnormal.
say so, and it's a key to success of the Tea Party is that we have small organizations. We need to split up. I'd have to say some of these groups are going to be too large and should be split up so that each town has a Tea Party. That's my dream, is every town in Worcester County. We're getting close to having every town covered by one Tea Party or another. A couple of months ago, the Sturbridge Tea Party started up, and I think they're taking Southbridge as part of their territory, and maybe Charlton. And Clinton just started up. They haven't had a meeting yet, but they will very soon. So size-wise, it's better for us to be small and local. We need to remain local.
Well, just to piggyback off of your question there, one of the things I was thinking of, I think one of the perceptions I had going into this whole thing was everybody was an irate minority, you know. I mean, so I thought that the whole Tea Party group could be comprised of a bunch of people that want to get out and do the legwork. But when you got groups of like 100 people, and even our group reached meetings of swelled to something. I think we had 110 at one point. So we were doing pretty good too. So to get everybody to adjust their lives to fit this in, I guess that was a perception that I had, that I was mistaken. But as I said, I thought I had that weird perception that we were the irate minority.
Say one thing. If you think about it, there are, I think, 13 tea parties within Worcester County right now. And if every one of them had a core group of 10 people, well, that's 130 people that are that's a pretty good sized group of leaders that you have. And so I think we're definitely succeeding in Worcester County. We are, I think, the model for the state. We're doing a lot. If we come together in a way that the rest of the state has not.
Paul?
I just want to mention that I think everybody here should be proud that we actually accomplished what we have so far this year. I mean, it's been a year. I mean, granted, Massachusetts and California, maybe we got our head up our, what, but the whole middle of the country knows what's going on, and there's zillions of tea parties in the central part of this country that, I mean, they're carrying everything and fixing it, okay? So it might take a lot more work for us. And I don't know about Massachusetts, it's a mess. I mean, you guys saw it. I mean, I actually think it was fixed, okay? So I don't know. Bonnie, you guys did, But I think everybody should be proud and keep fighting and, understand it's not easy. And not everybody has the time because, you have to exist in this planet, which is a horrifying place lately. And, not everybody has the cycles to go out and stand out and do all this, but, just be confident and don't worry, we're on the right track.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. If I could just interject, Justin. As I get older, I'm being taught, like a lot of people who get older, patience. And it's like, I'm 48, and I was patient on election night. I was very disappointed that we didn't get at least one congressman. I was looking for 3, frankly, in particular. I won't name who, but it's like, there were victories in Central Mass, not just in the legislature, which was great. That needed to go up. It had nowhere to go but up. And I worked for both Lou Evangelitis and Jen Casey. Worked hard for her. And those were 2 great victories. So I took a lot of consolation in that after all, because the Democrats were out. They learned the lesson from Scott Brown in January. So they were out in numbers. There were a lot of Democratic voters. So we had a lot to overcome, even though we had a lot of enthusiasm and energy. So I was very thankful for that.